Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Ukaipa City Council meeting of April 11th, 2022. And we'll start off by asking Captain Williams to lead us in the pledge.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for the record, Councilmember Duncan corrected me. It is the 25th of April, not the 11th. Thank you, sir. All righty, if you go ahead, Jennifer, you call roll.
Councilmember Bogue?
Here.
Councilmember Duncan?
Here.
Councilmember Thorpe?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaver? Mayor Avila?
Here. Moving on to changes in the agenda. Mr. Casey, are there any changes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, staff would respectfully request item number 9 be removed from consideration this evening, and we will bring that back to you at an upcoming meeting.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay,
Do we need to make a motion on
do
that?
we
right?
make a motion on this?
Please, yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to remove item number 9.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9 will be removed. Moving on to employee introductions. Captain Williams, I believe you're up.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce one of our new deputy sheriffs to the police department, Deputy Cameron Gray. Cameron started his career with the Sheriff's Department in September of 2017, and he was initially assigned to the Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center in San Bernardino. While he was there, he was a classification officer, dealt with classifying our different kinds of inmates and making sure the jail system is safe. And then in September of 2021, he was transferred to the Ukaipa station as his first patrol station. Since he's been here, he's already got a couple of accomplishments under his belt. He was involved in a commercial burglary investigation back in November, where a couple businesses here in town were victimized by some folks from out of town that came in. And he worked with our detectives, and we managed to get those suspects in custody, clearing up those cases. In December of 2021, Cameron spoke at 2 Yucaipa High School public safety classes and engaged with students about how to become a law enforcement officer, if that's what they're interested in doing. And he shared his path to become a deputy with those students. He has an associate's degree in administration of justice and is currently working on his bachelor's degree in business administration. Cameron grew up in Highland and has been married for about 8 years, and they just welcomed their first child. Cameron's career goals are to become a detective with the Sheriff's Department and to become even more involved in the city of Yucaipa by working with our local churches and other community groups. His hobbies include spending time with his family at the river, and he enjoys motocross, golfing, and surfing. And with that, I'd like to introduce Cameron Gray.
I just want to say thank you very much to the City of Ukaipa for allowing this opportunity for me to come out and speak. Since I've got up here to Ukaipa, I've had nothing but unwavering support from the community and the citizens, and I've had a great experience. I've been here. I just want to say thank you very much, and I do appreciate it greatly.
Very nice. Any comments?
No, I just want to thank you for solving that one crime. I think we were talking about the crime over there in Ukaipa Center.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you for helping us out on that issue.
Not a problem, sir. Thank you.
That was a big deal.
Very good. Thank you for choosing Ukaipa. Welcome to our team. And now we'd like to have our picture taken with you in front of our dais. Okay, moving on. This is the time for public comment. If there are any speakers, please give their speaker slip, which are located on that table by the doorway, to the city clerk here on my left, and she'll give them to me. You have 3 minutes to speak on any subject that's not currently on the agenda. If you want to speak on any item of the agenda, please indicate that on the speaker slip, and then when that agenda item comes up, we'll ask you to come up and speak for 3 minutes. Again, you have three minutes, and our first speaker is going to be Patty Ingram, if she can come up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I come here tonight actually to speak about pickleball, item 9, that was pulled from the agenda, and we did know that. But I wanted to just say a few things. First of all, I want to thank you for pulling it. We had not had the opportunity to go over this proposed plan with the staff members, and it was a little different from the ones that we had looked at previously, so we appreciate them giving us the time to do that. It was over a year ago that we actually got funded for our project, and so we hate to take any time that postpones it, because it seems like we've been waiting a long time, but we know that we need to get it right. And Ukaipa has always had a standard for beautiful parks. They've spent a lot of money, millions of dollars, on their park systems, and we want the pickleball facility to also be one that you can be proud of. We also hope that we will be able to have a facility where we can have some major events, even sanctioned events, because if you don't know, Ukaipa has a pro living here in the town. He is only 16 years old. He started with our club when he was 12. He is now ranked 22nd in the world in men's doubles, not in youth, in men's doubles. And he's from Yucaipa. He goes to Yucaipa High School. So I think it's important that we keep a facility that is of the status that would handle those kinds of players. Right now, we're limited to 7th Street, basically in the mornings, and the community center. Those are our 2 guaranteed facilities. So most of our clientele are retired seniors, because we only have weekday mornings where we have a guaranteed facility. So it will be so nice to be able to have evening and weekend facility times so that more families can play, more youth can play. Just last weekend, we had a youth tournament. I had several parents. They came from Hemet, from Riverside, from Corona, to come and play in Ukaipa, because nobody's offering youth tournaments. That is one of our goals in Ukaipa, was to try to grow the youth program, and we can only do that if we can offer pickleball outside of school times. So with that, I think it's really important that you know that our organization is willing to partner with the city. We want to do everything we can to make this facility one that we can all be proud of, and we look forward to working with you on it in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our second speaker is going to be Bill McEwen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. Bill McEwen, 12361 4th Street. I live basically in the heart of Uptown, if there is one, off of 4th Street. And there's been a couple of problems that I just kind of wanted to fill you in on, kind of the streets of Ukaipa update. One is the problem of dumpster divers. These are the people that go through the dumpsters and try to get recyclables. I don't know if they're homeless or they're very low income, whatever their situation is. It really kind of makes things more difficult. Kind of an update, something that's really helped a lot is we've gotten rid of 2 of the recycling centers. The one in Vaughn's is now gone, and the one in Stater Brothers is now gone. The only one left is the one uptown. Where is that? Up by what used to be Sales Drugs, but across from the school. There's only one left. So it's, you're coming back quite a bit, and it's really changed the atmosphere a lot. I notice it. So that's one thing that's really good. The other thing is this is really interesting. Stater Brothers, I was going for quite a long time, going to them and tell, hey, we got your shopping carts all down along 4th Street. They're uptown, they're up off of, 2nd Street. They just take the carts and just wheel them wherever they want to go. And it's partly the homeless people, but it's also low-income people, people without cars. that do that. So what does Stater Brothers do? I mean, I kind of get to know these guys a little bit. I tell them, here's where your pickup is. They have a pickup guy that goes out and picks up the carts. Turns out Stater Brothers has now got smart wheels on all the shopping carts. So when somebody tries to push off with outside of the lot from Stater Brothers, they can't do it anymore. The cart locks up, the wheel locks up, and they can no longer use that cart. That's made a phenomenal difference around the uptown, and I'm really grateful to them for doing that. It's just, sometimes there's things that really can really downgrade a neighborhood, and that's two of them. Both issues have been partially addressed, and it's a positive development, I believe. I just hope that there's anything that the city can do in addition, like the completion of Ukaipa Boulevard between 4th Street and I think it's 2nd Street, has yet to be completed. If we get that going, that'd be real good. It really spruce up the area. So just kind of an update on the streets of Ukaipa, in particular Ukaipa Boulevard. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is going to be Eric Statler.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. My name is Eric Stalter. I am with the Liberty Lap. Just came here to show a little bit of support with some of our community, to show some support for your recent decision to paint some red, white, and blue stripes on Ukaipa Boulevard. The reason we want to show support for this is because these colors are not an ideological division. They're support for our community. They're showing unification and togetherness in our community. Those colors cover every single one of us in this community. So we support you in making that decision. Secondly, I know I'm probably breaking the rules. We wanted to show support for you guys' decision, hopeful decision to write a letter of opposition for Assembly Bill AB 2223, or a resolution in opposition, and also a resolution in support of SB 1072, which is on your agenda, which is the human trafficking bill. So just wanted to support you guys in those things, so please continue on. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, there are no other speakers, and Jennifer confirming no other slips.
Correct.
All right, very good. Moving on to consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda a council member wish to pull for discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, do I have a motion to accept?
I'll move approve.
You have a first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mayor and council member business. Anything from the dais to report? Hearing none, seeing none. Did anybody participate in the weekend's tree planting ceremony or activity? No, none of us were.
I showed up, but well after the party had been completed. So everything was planted. It sounded like they had a pretty good turnout, and thank you to all the volunteers. So I did not get there in time to actually work, though, unfortunately.
Well, you showed, and that's more than I did. So thank you so much for representing.
Well, I think the mayor did attend the Redlands Bicycle Classic.
That's right. Mayor Pro Tem Beaver and I did attend the Redlands Bicycle Classic. Quite an event. It's a long haul. They had a 100-mile race that day, which I thought was phenomenal, and ended up at the last leg was Bryant and Oakland Road, and ended at pretty much where La Mexicana restaurant is in Oakland. That's almost a mile high at that elevation. They start out about 28, 29, and go up to 5,000 plus square feet or elevation. Pretty phenomenal. And I think that's about it for city stuff. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 7, Assembly Bill 2223, Reproductive Health. Ray Casey's up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you referenced, this is item relative to Assembly Bill 2223. In February of 2022, Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, representing California 15th Assembly District, introduced this bill. which seeks to change the way a coroner certificates fetal death. Current law requires a coroner to inquire into and determine the circumstances, manner, and cause of all specified types of death, including but not limited to violent, sudden, or unusual deaths, deaths related to following known or suspected self-induced or criminal abortion. The law specifies that such an inquiry does not include those investigative functions usually performed by other law enforcement agencies. In addition, this requires a coroner within 3 days after examination of a fetus to state on the certificate of fetal death the time of fetal death, direct cause of the fetal death, and the condition. The purpose of this law change, I guess, is to require a coroner not to perform that same inquest and deliver the death certificate to the attending funeral director. City staff is recommending that City Council approve a letter of opposition to Assembly Bill 2223, which does seek to change the coroner certificates of fetal death. The bill would delete the requirement that a coroner hold inquests for deaths related to or following known or suspected self-induced or criminal abortion, and the requirement that an unattended fetal death be treated as a death without medical attendance. This bill prohibits the use of the coroner statement and the certificate of fetal death to establish, bring, or support a criminal prosecution or civil case of damage against any person. In addition, the bill prohibits a person from being subject to civil or criminal liability based on their actions or omissions with respect to pregnancy or actual potential or alleged pregnancy outcome, or based on their solely on their actions to aid or assist a pregnant person who is exercising their reproductive rights. So AB 223 clarifies that abortion is unauthorized if performed by a person other than the pregnant person, and either the person performing the abortion is not a healthcare provider that is authorized to provide an abortion, or the fetus is viable. This bill authorizes an individual aggrieved by a violation of Reproductive Privacy Act to bring a civil action against an offending state actor, and requires a court, upon a motion, to award reasonable attorney's fees and costs to a prevailing plaintiff. My understanding is that could even be a police officer. According to the author, a critical part of the realization reproductive justice for people in California is clarifying that nobody will be investigated, prosecuted, or incarcerated for their actual, potential, or alleged pregnancy outcomes. I'm not going to read any more of the staff report. It's all pretty clearly stated in the staff report. But essentially, even perinatal abortions up to a certain point would be precluded from being charged relative to the way the current laws read versus if AB 2223 passes, even perinatal conditions would be allowed for in certain abortion circumstances. So happy to answer any questions, but with council's concurrence, staff's recommendation is to send a letter opposing Assembly Bill 223. I'll read the portions of the letter. The City of Ukaipa opposes Assembly Bill 2223, and this is a letter addressed to Dear Assembly Member Buffy Wick. In its efforts to change the way a coroner certificates fetal death, this bill imposes harmful restrictions on a coroner's ability to inquire into and determine the circumstances, manner, and cause of all specified types of death, especially as it relates to known or suspected self-induced or criminal abortion. If passed, this bill would certainly have unintentional consequences that negatively impact those who are trying to protect. The City of Ukaipa believes that the information provided by a coroner's investigation is essential to creating a clear sequence of events. The city encourages you to pull this bill from its respective committee or floor hearing. And as I understand it, it did pass the Assembly Health Committee recently, late last week. So that's the current status. That's staff's recommendation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ray. Are there any questions or comments? John?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I do have some comments to make on this. And if you'll forgive me, I'm going to be reading a lot, probably, and looking down because this is a bit emotional for me. So just bear with me. As the city manager stated in the bill, if it is passed, there is a term in there included, perinatal. that is defined in the Welfare and Institutions Code 14134.5. Perinatal means a period from the establishment of pregnancy to 1 month following delivery. If this bill passes, they're going to add a section to the Health and Wellness and Institutions Code to be listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, small parentheses A. Notwithstanding any other law, a person shall not be subject to civil or criminal liability or penalty or otherwise deprived of their rights under this article based on their actions or omission with respect of their pregnancy, actual, potential, alleged pregnancy outcome, including miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, perinatal death due to a pregnancy-related cause. I've done some research on this, and it may not be their intent as they're putting out to the media, but after reading this, I believe that this is written in a way that allows them to be able to kill a baby once the baby is born, up to 30 days or up to 28 days after death. If you look at that picture right there, that's a hand of a 26-and-a-half-week-old baby girl. That's my daughter. Born 2/3 into the pregnancy. She was born so my wife would live. It would have been very easy if I was not a pro-life individual to say, guess what? This is too difficult. I don't want to go any further with it, because there was a plethora of health concerns. Next picture. 30 minutes after my daughter was born, that's my wedding ring on her arm. Very much a baby, very much, obviously, much earlier than she should have been here, but very much a baby. And I would strongly encourage each and every one of you to oppose this bill. Contact your representatives up north. We cannot allow lawmakers to pass bills that have the potential of killing our babies. And I know abortion can be a controversial topic among some people, but this is for the born baby. Next picture. That's my daughter now. A teenager, doing well. And this isn't about me. We need to be a voice for the babies that can't talk and fight for themselves. The Lord blessed me with one child. My wife lives on, and my daughter lives on. They're both doing well. But again, this isn't about me or my family, but I use them as an illustration. Please oppose this bill. That's all I have.
That was a very brave thing, John Thorpe. Thank you. Okay, I don't see, it's logical. Do you hear a motion to approve a letter of opposition?
I make a motion that we approve the letter of opposition.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the letter of opposition to Assembly Bill 2223. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Hope we can just staple it to that guy's forehead. Let him know how we feel. Moving on to item number 8, Senate Bill 1072, Violent Felonies, Human Trafficking, another sensitive topic and outrageousness from Sacramento. Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is an item relative to in this case, a Senate Bill 1072 regarding the designation of human sex trafficking as a violent felony subject to the offense, subjecting the offense to enhanced penalties. As you know, I don't normally read a lot of information in our staff reports, but I think both the last item and this item certainly warrant the appropriate information being put out there. And so I'm going to, again, read a little bit of this staff report, the highlights or the lowlights, if you will. In this particular case, we are recommending that council support this item in a letter as it would create a violent felony for sex trafficking. It's an uphill battle, but certainly a battle that's worth getting engaged in. In February 2022, Senator Brian Dahl, who represents California's 1st Senate District, introduced Senate Bill 1072, which seeks to designate human trafficking as a violent felony. Current California law states that a person who deprives or violates the personal liberty of another with the intent to obtain forced labor or services is guilty of human trafficking and shall be punished by imprisonment in the state prison for 5, 8, or 12 years and a fine of not more than $500,000. Additionally, the law states that a person who deprives, violates the personal liberty of another with the intent to commit specified crimes, including pimping, pandering, or child pornography, is guilty of human trafficking and shall be punished by imprisonment in the state prison for 8, 14, or 20 years and a fine of not more than $500,000. The law specifies that a person who causes, induces, or persuades, or attempts to cause, induce, or persuade a person who is a minor at the time of commission of the offense to engage in a commercial sex act with the intent to commit specified crime, including pimping, pandering, or child pornography, is guilty of human trafficking. A violation is punishable by imprisonment in the state prison as follows: 5, 18, or 12 years, a fine of not more than $500,000, 15 years to life, a fine not more than $500,000, only when the offense involves force, fear, fraud, deceit, coercion, violence, duress, menace, or threat of unlawful injury to the victim or to another person. As defined in law, there are a few examples of offenses that are within the definition of violent felony. A full list of violent felonies can be found on California Penal Code 667.5, but it includes murder, voluntary manslaughter, mayhem, lewd acts on a child under the age of 14, as further defined, arson of a structure, forest, land, or property that causes great bodily injury, any robbery, kidnapping, explosion, or attempted explosion of a destructive device with the intent to commit murder. However, as the law stands today, and this is the reason for sending the letter and this bill, supporting this bill. However, as the law stands today, human trafficking offenses are not designated as a violent felony in California Penal Code 667.5. City staff is recommending council approve a letter of support for Senate Bill 1072 regarding the designation of human sex trafficking as a violent felony, subjecting the offense to enhanced penalties. It does rank among the fastest growing crimes in California, unfortunately, with perpetrators of crimes becoming more organized each year. The most egregious forms of human trafficking involve sex acts, and the coercion of children for sex acts are not considered a serious or violent felony. They're not considered a serious or violent felony as the law exists today. In 2016, the voters of the state approved Prop 57, which among its many drafting errors and vagaries, including, and that's being kind, included the undefined term convicted of a nonviolent felony offense. Generally, it was assumed and conferred by the governor's spokesman that the term meant only the 23 offenses, categories of crime listed in Penal Code Section 667.5. However, presumably, the intention behind leaving the term undefined was to allow the legislature and the governor an opportunity to alter the definition of nonviolent if needed. This is exactly what this legislation aims to do. While most nonviolent crimes involve criminal conduct in which no physical injury occurs, many crimes involving physical injury, threat of physical injury, are considered nonviolent simply because they aren't included in the code as it exists today. I'm not going to read anymore, but staff's recommendation in this case, I won't go through the statistics, they're appalling. But our recommendation relative to this item is that council review and approve a letter of support for Senate Bill 1072 regarding the designation of human sex trafficking as a violent felony, subjecting the offense to the enhanced penalties associated with that. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments?
I have a couple of comments. Considering this is one of the bills that I brought up from the last city council member, and it was due to the fact that there was a Senator Shannon Grove who did try to put a more stringent bill through the Public Safety Committee in Sacramento, and it was shot down And it was shut down because California has taken a position that no matter how terrible a crime is right now, they will not increase prison sentences for anyone for anything. And that's the position they take. And so no matter what it is, they will not enhance crimes. So this is actually just a watered down bill of Senator Shannon Groves. I do support this bill also, but I think it's important to understand that this is just another attempt to try to get something through the legislature. And I think it's also important that people understand that, you know, I don't know too many people who think that this is a good idea, but unfortunately, certain areas of our state do think this is, you know, a bad piece of legislation. And if you look at the Public Safety Committee, it's made up of legislators from San Francisco, Berkeley, and the other two are out of Los Angeles. So I don't think, apparently we don't have the same type of values that they do. But unfortunately, they seem to dictate what happens in the state. So with that, I do support this letter, although it is just another watered down version of what Senator Shannon Grove had proposed. So with that, I'll move it. I'll move
second.
this item.
All right, we have a first and a second. I would like to add that the city of Ukaipa has formally brought to the attention of human trafficking awareness since 2020. And I'm sure we're all going to support this. And just so you know, there's been 11 attempts to make human trafficking a felony since 2006. There is something wrong with our legislatures when they, in my opinion, I'm speaking for me, when our elected officials in Sacramento can't understand the violence of rape and sex with minors and the idea of holding a person prisoner and trafficking them up and down the state. Inland Empire is one of the worst areas in California. I think San Bernardino, and correct me if I'm wrong, San Bernardino is like #1 in the Inland Empire for human trafficking. This is, like I said, it's a watered-down version. I'm not sure if it'll pass, but we need to take a stand. We need to let the public know we support doing something about this. So with that, I heard a first and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. I'll be glad to sign it. Moving on to item number 11, Megan Wolf with the amendment to Ukaipa Municipal Code Section 112.04.040, hours
I'm
of
sorry.
operation. I'm sorry, item number 10. Andrew Hamilton, audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Members. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As you probably recall, last August is when we brought the prior year's CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, to the City Council. That was mostly performed by consultants this year. With the new staffing, I believe it's a testament to the finance folks and city manager getting that department aligned. And in our attempt to continue along the process of continuous improvement, we had a great partnership with VLF. And before us is Mr. Brett Van Lant. I'm going to introduce him right now. He's a partner with VLF, and he will take it from here to provide some of the details of their annual financial statement audit of the city of Ukaipa.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Brett Van Lant, partner with Van Lant and Fankennel. We conducted the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. I have just a brief presentation regarding the audit results. So there are several reports that are issued as part of our audit, most notably the audit report, that's the opinion on the financial statements. There's also a report on internal control. This is a report that's required by government auditing standards. There was a report, agreed upon procedures report on the calculation of the city's appropriations limit. In addition, there's a required communication, which is the SAS 114 letter. This is a communication directly with the city council. And also, which will be included as part of the audit process, will be a single audit report that's forthcoming. I just want to go over some key figures in the financial statements. The net pension liability increased about $500,000 compared to the prior year. And one of the reasons for this is you're not seeing the increase in your investment gains that CalPERS had. Because of the delay in the reporting for the pension liabilities, it's a year behind. So hopefully you'll start seeing that increase and also a decrease to your net pension liability potentially in the following year. Revenues in the general fund exceeded your expenditures by about $4.3 million. That's not taking into consideration the transfers. The unrestricted fund balance in your general fund, this is only including your unassigned and assigned fund balance, is approximately 50% of your fiscal year 21 expenditures. So it basically computes to having roughly 6 months of reserves in your general fund. GFOA, which is Government Finance Officers Association, they have a best practice recommendation of a minimum of 2 months, so you can kind of see where the city falls into those best practices. Again, these reserves do not include the committed fund balances, which include your economic stabilization and emergency contingency reserves. I did also want to note on the audit report, the opinion that the city received on the financial statements was an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, meaning we did not identify any material departures from generally accepted accounting principles. That's the highest level of reporting that you can receive in an audit. Also, the OPEB, the retiree healthcare liability, is about $2.3 million at year end. That's roughly I believe about a $250,000 increase from the prior year. So the report on internal control, this is a report that's required by government auditing standards. This is where if we identify any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies in financial reporting, in addition, if we identify any non-compliance with contracts, laws, regulations, grant agreements, things like that, that could have a material impact on the city's financial statements, we would be required to report it in this report. We're also required to report any other matters that we feel are important for the city council to be aware of. The purpose of this report is not to express an opinion on the internal controls over financial reporting because we're not doing a level of procedures to be able to state an opinion on that. There was one, we call it a finding, but it's really just a report that we feel is informational to the city council regarding the general fund advances. General fund has advanced money to the development impact fee funds, and the city has actually taken a lot of steps over the last couple of years to adopt loan agreements for the formal repayment of these advances. So just reporting on that to keep that in mind for the city council. And with that, that's kind of a brief presentation of the audit and the audit process. I would like to thank the finance staff for all their assistance. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Greg?
Just for the record, Councilmember Thorpe and I sat through this presentation more in detail earlier this afternoon. And there were two things I think are important to look at. And if you could go back to financial statement key figures. So the first one is our revenues in the city of Ukaipa exceeded the expenditures by $4.3 million, so that's a good sign. And then a lot of the one that people get heartache over is the pension liability, but that's also something that's brought down by the state of California. So if the state of California gives us a different discount rate or different percentage, that number fluctuates dramatically. Do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Sure. So your net pension liability is based off of assumptions by CalPERS. They have actuaries that come up with what they feel is the discount rate. It's approved by the CalPERS board. They set a rate of about 7.15%. That's the expected return on their overall pooled investments. And so when they calculate what your net pension liability is, they are considering that being the basis for what your pension liability is. If they are wrong by 1%, so for example, if the investments actually earn 8%, your pension liability will decrease about $3 million. So on the flip side of that, if they're wrong by 1% higher, so if the discount rate is only 6.15%, your net pension liability could increase about $3 or $4 million. And so this number, it is a big number, and it's something that a lot of city councils and citizens look at on an annual basis, how their pension liability is doing. It is an estimate. It's an estimate based off of best expectations that they have, but the future could change significantly. One thing that we were actually looking at today was the discount rate that was earned for the financial reporting year of 2021, but actually earned in the fiscal year 2020 because of that 1-year delay was about 4.7%. So in 2020, they earned 4.7%, but they estimated that they were going to earn 7.15%. On the flip side, in 2021, they earned approximately 22%, 21.7, something like that. And they only estimated to earn 7%. So they did much better this year, but again, it's a sliding scale, and it changes based off of the economy and things like that. So.
Okay, well, that was it. That's all I had.
All right, John?
So if we were to pay off that money's coming out of our unassigned fund balance, right? I mean, right now, in theory, with our budget or with our monies that we have on hand, that 5.5, we don't have as much as we thought we did because that's applied to it, right? I mean,
That's money that could be paid off out of the unassigned fund balance or your committed fund balance if you so choose. With the estimated return on investment from this past year, as Brett mentioned, this was from the year prior, that number will come down. But that is an option available to council to consider, is to pay that off. And maybe it would be better to do that with this year's number rather than last year's number, but that is an option.
I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying when we look at our overall finances and we show $22 million in unassigned fund balance, that number right there should be deducted from that before we rejoice over what we have.
I don't know if I would look at it quite the same. I think it is certainly an obligation. As Brett mentioned, it's an obligation that goes up and down depending on the return on investment. And when you have PERS return going from 4% the previous year to 20% this year, that's a huge fluctuation. So it is certainly an option to pay it off. I wouldn't say it's directly related to the level of the fund balance or the reserves, however.
No, but my point is that we really don't have as much money as we thought based on that number right there.
Yeah, but the number is arbitrary. That's kind of what we were discussing in the committee.
I would say this, that there have been a few cities that have paid it off. The minority of cities in the state have paid it off. For those that haven't paid it off, I would say our balance is very low among those cities that haven't paid it off. But there are a number of cities that, a few cities that have paid it off.
So with that, I'll move the item.
Okay, I was just
Receipt.
digesting everything there, I'm sorry.
It's just receiving files.
Yeah, this is a receive and file. And if there's any questions, and if you don't want to give any specific or special direction, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I believe it's Megan Wolf, who will be talking about amendment to Ukaipa Municipal Code.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, I am before you as the amendment to the Ukaipa Municipal Code, Section 1204040, was continued from the April 11th meeting. This evening, staff is recommending that the City Council approve first reading of ordinance number 406, amending Section 12.04.040 of Chapter 12.04 of Title 12 of the Ukaipa Municipal Code regarding hours of operation, and find ordinance number 406 exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15378 and 15061B3. At the last City Council meeting, we needed some clarification in regards to the change in hours of operation at city parks. Staff is recommending that the change read, "No person shall be in any city park facility except between sunrise and sunset each day, other than for use of lighted courts until 10 p.m., or unless a facility use permit or special event permit is obtained." Nothing in this section shall be construed to limit the city's authority to close a city park and limit access during daytime hours as it deems appropriate, including but not limited to when closure is necessary for maintenance. This is all I have, and I can answer any question that council may have at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, staff? All right,
Nope.
hearing none.
I'll move the item.
We have a motion to move it forward.
I'll second.
First and a second. No further questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 12. Again, Andrew Hamilton, fiscal year 21-22, third quarter general fund budget report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This item was also reviewed by the Finance Committee earlier today. So in this fiscal year, we're looking at each quarter, comparing the general fund budget to what we believe will occur in the estimated actuals. So with that, we can start right into the presentation. And if you can look at the two top lines, we'll look at the revenues and expenses. We're going to look at some of the columns. The first column of numbers says the fiscal 22 original adopted budget. If you scoot 3 over from there, it'll to the right. The fourth column is the Q3 fiscal 22 estimated actuals. And the difference between that first column of figures and that fourth column of figures in Q3 is the last column, and that represents the difference between Q3 and the original budget. So those are generally the 3 columns we look at. And now we'll just look at the first row. So the first row, the revenues, you can see the original adopted budget for fiscal 22 was $29.35 million. If we go over to the Q3 column, we're estimating that the revenue will be $30.9 million. And that one, the column directly to the right, that's a difference of approximately $1.6 million favorable. So we're expecting about $1.6 million more revenue as at this time for the Q3 budget update. Now going down to the total expenses line, you can see $35.6 million was in the original budget. Going to the Q3 column, you can see 34.4 is now the estimate. And to the right, one more column, the difference, that's a favorable 1.2 million. So we're expecting approximately 1.2 million less expenses at the current time compared to the original adopted budget. Some of the items below, you'll see the ARPA estimate for revenue loss. That has not changed. We're still maintaining that $2.2 million estimate. The ARPA estimate for staffing to pre-pandemic levels, that's the second and third up from the bottom lines. I believe in the next upcoming council meetings, the city manager will be potentially revisiting those final numbers. So that leaves us with the adjusted budget surplus, the bottom line figure. You can see that's $1 million unfavorable in that first column of the original adopted budget numbers. In the Q3 column, going over to the fourth numbered column, that's 1.765 million, and that means there's a favorable difference of about 2.8 million. Now, we'll talk about the revenues a little bit in this next page. At mid-year, the City Council already approved and adopted the budget adjustments for those first three related to property tax, sales and use tax, other revenues. Generally, the city is conservative in its budgeting approach so that, and especially this time last year, we had, as you recall, during the pandemic, the sales and use tax was quite a bit lower, so it was very difficult to forecast that number. So you can see the council already approved a budget increase of that $624,000. And right now we're proposing, you'll see this later in the recommendation, that second section, those three budget adjustments for the items listed for about $100,000 each. The sum of those six, the three are previously approved, plus the three tonight that are proposed, equals about 1.5 million. That's the increase in expected revenue that was seen in the previous page. So the last slide of financial figures is our projected fund balance. And if I can just briefly discuss the bottom row, or the bottom line, kind of a darker orange, you'll see that 2021 figure is 2.4 million in the CAFR. This is the first quarter that has those numbers, 2021 actuals. Was projected, is the 2022 projected, you can see that. So we updated this graph for the 2021 actuals. And you can see relates to the assigned fund balance of 2.4 million in 2022. That is projected to be at zero due to cleaning up some of the schedule of sock drawer items that I think previously was in that list. You can see the second line is up from the bottom is kind of a darker yellow. That represents the unassigned fund balance. That is at 9.3 million. And previously we had forecasted that at being approximately 14 million. So you might say, oh, that's gone down about 5 million. However, the council adopted that $6 million transfer from prior year's net revenues. So that in Q2 in the mid-year, so that would have dropped that 14 million projection to about 8. We ended the year for 2021 at 9.3, so we're a little favorable, even above and beyond what was projected just recently. So all that to say is I believe the city's finances are very strong, especially with the upcoming ARPA revenue that the city is expecting to receive. Approximately 4 million was received last June, and we're expecting to receive another 4 million on or after this June of this year in a couple months. So if you go to then the recommendations, the first recommendation, as I stated, is to amend the fiscal 21-22 general fund adopted budget by those amounts in that previous slide, those three items. Number two is to amend some of the items that reallocate some of the CIP and the budget related to the listed projects, rather than coming from the current fiscal year's general fund operating budget. They come out of that approximately $6 million that, like I mentioned, the city's capital projects fund, Fund 35, that had been, that $6 million was allocated at the mid-year. And then the last recommendation, number 3, relates to increasing the committed fund balance for economic emergencies from 20 to 30%. That was something we wanted to come back to the city council from a prior city council discussion. So with that, you have the 3 recommendations. That's the conclusion of my comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions of staff?
Well, I have the same comments that Councilmember Thorpe and I, we sat through the same committee hearing. And if you could go back to the first slide. I think the one that we took away the most is that we started off with the original adopted budget of a minus $1 million, basically $1 million. And now, as the year has progressed, we have now a budget surplus of 1.7, close to 1.8 million, which is a difference of basically 2.7. Is that correct?
I should have asked you to present this slide.
Anyways, that's what I got from it. So that's basically, and then the extra revenue is what, and the extra changes in the budget is what we're adopting today, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Got anything?
You guys good?
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, this requires a vote.
I'll move approval.
You have a motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes carry it. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamilton. Moving on to item number 13. Fermin Preciado, change order number 6, Wilson 3 Basin Phase 1B improvements.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and council members. This item is for City Council's consideration of a proposed change order for the Wilson 3 Basin Phase 1B project construction contract. The City Council awarded the construction contract for this project in September of last year, and the project is currently under construction and is about 60% complete. And Assistant City Engineer Landon Kern will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Fermin, and good evening, Mayor, members of council. As Fermin introduced for us, this report is for the proposed construction contract change order number 6 for the Wilson 3 Basin Phase 1B project contract. I'll take a moment to provide a little background on the phasing of where we're at. On the screen before you is a slide that shows the overall project area and our EIR, our Oak Glen Creek specific plan that the EIR covers, which shows the residential tract, the 2 innovation areas to the east, and then the Phase 1B contract of the channel realignment here coming into the basin and all the landscaping improvements that will ultimately be developed with the Phase 2 portion downstream as well. At the City Council meeting held on September 13th, 2021, late last year, the Phase 1A construction contract improvements were accepted as complete by JMI, and that included basically the mass excavation work in the areas of red. The central portion was primarily excavation when the channel was realigned, and a significant over 1 million cubic yards of material was excavated in the large basin area and stockpiled in some of the other areas, A and C on site, in preparation for the upcoming phases of work. As a part of this contract that was completed, a significant amount of rock was generated in the channel and basin excavation areas and set aside for Phase 1B and the future phases of work that are currently underway. So here before you is a slide that shows the Phase 1B improvements. This contract was awarded, as Fermin mentioned, on September 27th of last year to LB3 Enterprises. And these improvements that are currently under construction include primarily the protection of the channel that was realigned in Phase 1A, using the rock, what we call the riprap, some of which is grouted and ungrouted, to protect those sections of the channel. And there's also some sections that it's important to note that remain an open bottom to help facilitate that recharge in those areas. Part of Phase 1B construction also included drainage improvements coming from the east, entering the channel along the church, and some of those improvements that were a part of that agreement with the land exchange that took place with the church. And one of the benefits of getting these Phase 1B improvements in place is, of course, being immediately downstream of the burn areas from El Dorado fire. Getting these channel areas protected is really critical at this time. We've seen some of the material that's been coming down through the storms and ending up in this area. So getting these improvements in are critical. This next slide shows the future phases of work in these select areas, primarily consisting of the larger structures as the culvert empties into this realigned channel at Oak Glen Road, and then all Oak Glen Creek, the inlet structure tying into the new realigned channel. Ultimately, the completion of the excavation areas in the large basin itself, and ultimately the downstream channel and the recharge area that's set aside, and all of the trail and network and fencing and landscaping in addition to the park, as well as the permanent lake that's also being designed right now. The next two slides I'll show you here is a photo of the channel after the Phase 1A work was completed late last year. This is picture was taken standing from Oak Glen Road looking to the south in that realigned channel there. Basically the condition of that channel at the completion of Phase 1A. And then this next photo here is a drone shot from March. We're a little further along today than this photo shows, but this shows that channel protection that's going in, utilizing that rock that was generated from the excavated areas further downstream and placing that rock in the channel per the approved plans. In order to protect that, a significant portion of that is grouted, and you can see one section here with an open bottom to facilitate that recharge area. And so we're a little bit more than 50% way down the channel with that rock protection that's going in. As Fermin mentioned, the Phase 1B contract, we're approximately 60% complete, and through the progress of construction, we've administratively approved 5 change orders to date, authorizing some modifications to the drainage improvements along the easterly boundary, and installation of erosion control and protective measures, and then also some required basin and channel repair work in response to the damage that we sustained from the recent and heavy storm events, which brought a significant amount of debris and material down from the El Dorado fire burn area. We have applied for emergency funding, and we're coordinating with the agencies in order to seek reimbursement for some of that repair work and some additional repair work that may be needed to, if they determine it to be eligible for reimbursement. And so as we pass the halfway point in the channel protection with this Phase 1B contract, it's become evident that additional rock, specifically the half-ton and the 1-ton size rock that's in the approved plans, additional rock is needed to complete these Phase 1 improvements and get us on this curve and down right into the entrance to the main basin where that future structure is going to be built. Based on the rock that we generated and found in the Phase 1A, we believe there's sufficient rock material immediately in the basin to the south, and in the remaining portions of that basin that were not fully excavated with Phase 1A. I'll back up for a moment here to show you this slide that shows the future phases. There's a portion of the basin mainly toward the bottom and along the slopes of the southerly and easterly sides of the basin that was not completed with Phase 1A. This is the area of excavation that remains to be completed. It is identified in the approved plans to be completed, and this is the area that we anticipate to generate a significant portion of rock if we can begin that excavation work now. And so due to the nature of the Phase 1B construction that's underway and the proximity of that work to this area, staff has negotiated a proposed contract change order number 6 with LB3. And that proposed change order is in the not to exceed amount of $270,000 and includes excavation in this area of the basin, primarily the areas in the south and the east of the basin that haven't been excavated in the lower portions. And the change order that's proposed also includes the sorting of the rock to be used for the channel riprap sections that are already covered under the installation of that rock material under the 1B contract. So the phase, or the work proposed with this proposed change order is consistent with the plans prepared for the project and approved by City Council, and if approved, would essentially reduce the amount of excavation work that would be required for these upcoming phases of work. This change order would allow us to use the resources available to us now to get some of that excavation work done and generate that rock that's needed to complete Phase 1B. We're also finalizing the bid documents for the next phase of improvements, Phase 1C, and we'll return to council at a future council meeting with the recommendations to award a contract for the Phase 1C work, which is likely to include this main box here at Oakland Road and potentially some of the other work further downstream. That would be following a public bid process, of course. I'll move forward to show you the available funding on this slide as shown in the agenda report. The new information that's shown on this slide is this item here, the very last row in the funding sources, which is the community project funding congressionally directed spending for which we applied for $1 million to be allocated to the Wilson 3 Basin project. And we received information, we received the notification of the approval of that, and that formal approval is still pending. So we anticipate to incorporate that into the draft CIP that's upcoming, but it was good news to hear that money was allocated toward the project. Sufficient funding is available to accommodate their recommendation, and with that, staff is recommending council approve and authorize the city manager to execute change order number 6 in the amount of $270,000 for a revised total contract in the amount of $1,592,522.84. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? None at all. Okay, good report. Answered everybody's question. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Moving on to item number 14. Ray Casey, Agreement with Innovative Federal Strategies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item is, as you mentioned, an agreement with Innovative Federal Strategies, LLC, for federal lobbying services. As some council members may recall, a number of years ago, we enlisted the support of a federal lobbyist and a state lobbyist when earmarks were previously available. I know there's a better term for that, but I'll call them earmarks. And for a number of years, earmarks were not available. Competitive grant funding was difficult at best at the federal level. For lots of reasons, and at the state level, we also did not see a lot of competitive grant funding or quote-unquote earmark funding. But we are starting to see that over the last several years on the federal level and in the state level, and therefore, staff had initially consulted with Innovative Federal Strategies administratively to help with a number of these both earmark and competitive grant funding opportunities that we have pursued over the last 5 or 6 months, year in some cases. And it has proven to be a very successful relationship so far. You just heard about the $1 million that was acquired with their help through Congressman Obernoti's support and then approved by the Senate. There was actually another $1 million and then ultimately the president signed it, there was another $1 million request that was approved through federal support at the congressional level, but didn't make it in the Senate bill, the accompanying Senate bill. And that was $1 million for the interchange. So we're taking another run at it this year, $2.5 million this year for the Wildwood Interchange. And the county has agreed to take the lead on a $3 million earmark request for a joint library that we've talked about previously. And again, we believe, staff believes, that innovative federal strategies would play an important role in those efforts, that it really is a partnership between the congressman's office, the senator's office, and our lobbyist. In fact, we just recently were able to have a tour with Senator Feinstein's staff of our Wilson III Basin project and the location for the Wildwood Interchange through Innovative Federal Strategies efforts, and they were actually very excited. He was very excited with the large Wilson III Basin hole that you've all seen, and the information that we shared with him relative to the groundwater recharge benefits of that project, the stormwater detention benefits, the downstream economic benefits associated with taking commercial developable property out of the floodplain. So sometimes field pictures are worth many thousand words, but again, we wouldn't have had that opportunity without innovative federal strategies. So for the help with the competitive grant opportunities, for the help with the earmark opportunities, and with the relationships with Senator and Congressman's office personnel and the administrative personnel. Staff's recommending that we go ahead with a contract with Innovative Federal Strategies from May 1st through June 31st, and the not-to-exceed amount of $66,500, and that council directs staff to include the funding for this recommendation beyond July 1st in the draft fiscal year 22-23 general fund budget. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Well, what is it? It's, what's the monthly payment? $4,000, $4,700 a month?
$4,750, yeah.
And we've already got $1 million, so that's a pretty good return.
I know when we met with Congressman Obernolte and discussed some items, this might be a little bit off topic, but you said something about earmarks. And apparently he wrote his PhD dissertation on the positive aspects of earmarks.
I didn't know.
Do you recall that?
I don't remember that, yeah. Yeah. I must have been at the post meeting after the big meeting, so we're on the way out the door. That's awesome.
It doesn't sound very exciting, but I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
With that, I'll move the item.
All right, we have a motion moving forward. Second? We have first and a second.
I'll second. There we go. Sorry, my mic wasn't on.
Oh, first and a second. If no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 15, Fermin Preciado, Development Services Update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's been approximately 12 months since the last update. Staff wanted to take this opportunity to provide another update of the services to the community that are provided by the Development Services Department. So the purpose of this report is to provide City Council and the residents and the general public an update of the functions of the department, as well as the services that have been provided over the 12-month period of April 21 through March of 22. On the screen before you is the organizational chart for the department. As you can see, there are 30 full-time city staff. 2 positions are currently vacant. And as you're aware, additional consultant staff is brought on to support the workload and and based on the workload, and also based on the level of services that are being requested by the public. As part of the department, there are 5 different divisions: Public Works, Building and Safety, Engineering, Planning, and Code Enforcement. And the staff will be presenting an update on each of the activities within each of the divisions. And since this update is for the last 12 months, I know we're trying to put the COVID-19 pandemic behind us, but there were, just wanted to mention that there were certain things that the city did in response to the pandemic between April 21 to March of 22. That included the temporary closure of several city facilities, a community center, senior center, YPAC and city parks. There were some, council did approve revisions to the personnel policy consistent with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and also city hall departments, not just development services, but all city hall departments did make some adjustments to business practices to reduce impacts to customer service. And also, as part of those adjustments, I did wanted to mention that we do continue to use some of those adjustments that we made, which include the electronic permit application and plan submittal process for planning, engineering, and building and safety, and also providing the online electronic plan check services, which again, we're continuing to provide. So one of the most, beginning with the Building and Safety Division, which is one of the most common services provided in the department, just wanted to go over some of the statistics. Over the last 12-month period, 2,010 permits were issued, which is a 21% increase from the permits issued the previous 12-month period. In order to get to those permits, there's the plan check process that is required. And as you can see, there was a 30% increase in the number of plan checks that were completed over the last 12-month period by Building and Safety. One of the things that we implemented was to continue to improve our customer service was the over-the-counter permits. That is something that the Development Services Department offers on Wednesday afternoons from 1 to 4:30. It gives the customers an opportunity to come to the counter and apply for certain types of building permits, the smaller projects like solar projects, pools, patio covers, retaining walls, and even minor additions. They can come in on Wednesday afternoons, and if they have a complete permit application, and we have a planning, engineering, and building and safety staff that provide that service at the counter. And in the last 8 months that we've been providing this service, a total of 86 over-the-counter permits have been issued. Again, the majority of those permits are for solar projects, pools, and patio covers. And there have been some retaining wall permits and also minor additions that have been issued over the counter. One benefit that this number doesn't really show is that there are a large number of plan checks that were provided on those Wednesday afternoons where the plan check was completed, but it didn't result in a building permit that same day because either it was an incomplete application or there were significant changes to the plans that needed to be made. And the benefit there is that the customer was able to receive a plan check there over the counter, and on most occasions they were able to come back the next day or even the following week for a permit over the counter. So I wanted to point that out. Another division is the Public Works Division. As you can see, over 1,800 concerns from the public were logged by the Public Works Division. Many of those concerns were received from residents who are using the City of Ukaipa, the mobile or the web-based app. I would say the majority were received through that app, but others were received via email or phone call or people just coming to the counter to report some of these concerns. Those concerns that were logged were usually maintenance-related concerns, either potholes or at parks, and the majority of those concerns were addressed within 24 hours. Some of them that were not able to be addressed because they required specific equipment or material, they were referred to another program, either the payment management program or on certain occasion, even code enforcement, because those issues were not within the public right-of-way, they were on private property. The Public Works Division staff also completed several special projects. The Five Winds Ranch, El Dorado Ranch Park construction, a lot of the work that you've seen going on up there was completed by Public Works staff in-house. A lot of that was in response to restoring the area in the park after the fires, but they did also complete a lot of the grading and the installation of the irrigation for the many trees that have been planted up at Five Winds. And Public Works has also been focusing on the Keep Ukaipa Clean program, which includes additional litter removal and in certain cases weed abatement along the on-off ramps at the I-10 freeway on-off ramps at Live Oak and also Ukaipa Boulevard. Caltrans does conduct some maintenance there, the weed abatement and litter removal, but the Public Works Division staff has supplemented that effort in providing our own litter removal as needed. And also there's, with respect to emergency response, Public Works staff did complete a lot of work with the El Dorado Fire post-fire flooding mitigation measure installation. A lot of the K-rail signage and other erosion control measures that you see in the North Bench, the majority of those were installed by Public Works. And also after the January storms, a lot of the mud debris flow cleanup was conducted by or completed by the Public Works Division. And I also wanted to point out that Public Works crews also assist with many special events that are held in the community. And one example of that is a Redlands Bicycle Classic that occurred last week. And at this time, I'd like to invite Landon to present some information on the Engineering Division services.
Thank you, Fermin. Happy to provide an update on our Engineering Division services and highlight some of our greatest opportunities to provide customer service to our applicants and projects that are coming into town. Our Engineering Division is on a day-to-day basis involved with the engineering review of land development projects, our CIP projects, and as well as the private and public infrastructure that comes into town with the engineering review of the land development projects. Oftentimes that includes street improvements, storm drain and hydrology, traffic signal, grading plans, WQMPs. We also perform research on properties, for example, for utility or access easements that may have been omitted from a site plan, and oftentimes our reviews of applications will involve drainage or water quality related items and may in many cases require construction of permanent street and storm drain improvements. And similarly with our building and safety permit applications, those often require engineering plan review as well. So there's quite a few different areas where we get the opportunity to make sure that there's a consistency with the improvements that are coming into town and tying in with our infrastructure well. The information in the report for the Engineering Division of this update incorporates the time period between April 2021 to March of this year, and it covers about 38 projects, mostly associated with the private developments. And as a part of those 38 projects, there were 175 plan checks that were completed. Comparing that to the last 12-month period of 114, that was about a 54% increase in plan checks. A lot of activity and public improvements coming in with those private land development projects. A total of 76 sets of plans that were reviewed in that process, some of which were repeats, 2 or 3 rounds of comments to get them consistent with their standards. It's important to note that that doesn't include our CIP project plans that are typically developed either in-house with our engineering staff or with design contracts that are awarded through a competitive RFP process and then subsequently reviewed in-house. The engineering division goals are to perform a comprehensive engineering review to make sure the plans meet all the requirements. Examples include city standard street improvements, traffic safety measures, drainage requirements, making sure the appropriate right-of-way is dedicated to accommodate the improvements. In some cases, requires coordination with other agencies, sometimes San Bernardino County Flood Control being one example, or other utility agencies. It's important to note that while these reviews are taking place, there's also a great deal of customers coming in to the counter requiring some engineering reviews. Those include ongoing encroachment permit applications, traffic control plans, and other public inquiries and associated research. Plan checks are one of those key services that we provide, and we make every effort possible to not only provide a complete review, but to turn them around as quickly as possible, and in most cases, under the standard processing time of 15 days. And each plan review is unique, and as we implement our new systems and software, we're always looking for ways to speed up the review while still providing that high-quality level of service. Finally, here's just a quick snapshot of our capital improvement program. A lot of projects in our CIP as a part of our budget. And of those projects, there are 56 that are active and underway in various phases of development, either the planning and environmental review phase, or under design of the project plans, or in many cases, construction. And so focusing just for a moment on the construction, we have 21 construction contracts that have been awarded by council and that have had active construction over the last 12 months. And together, those represent a cumulative value of over $14.3 million of that approved construction budget amount. The significant portion of that being the construction contracts themselves and the administration of those contracts. Great deal of investment in public infrastructure. And these improvements that were prioritized by City Council include drainage improvement projects, trail and park improvements, public facility improvements, pavement rehabilitation, traffic signal improvements, as well as street and sidewalk improvements. And at this time, I will turn it over to our planning manager, city planner, Ben Matlock, to provide a summary on the planning division.
Thank you, Landon, and thank you, honorable mayor and city council members. So part of the development services, or at least the plan update, was kind of provided at the March 20th, 2020 city council meeting as we presented the annual progress report for both the housing element progress as well as the general plan. However, a key takeaway, in addition to all the residential projects identified in that, is we have been pretty busy in the planning department. For example, we've had 205 different land use entitlements submitted in the past year, which is an increase from 155 applications in the previous 12 months. Do want to note, as part of that number of entitlements is the highest since the city implemented City View in 2008, and the fourth highest since city incorporation in 1989. So we've definitely been plugging with a lot of different projects. And not only do we have a number of different new entitlements, number of these different projects tend to be a bit more complex in nature. We do have a number of different applications, for example, that include general plan amendments to upzone properties, and so working through the California Environmental Quality Act requirements for those, noticing and coordination with different groups has been a big part of the planning division's activity. However, despite a heavy workload, staff has worked to provide timely review of these projects. As part of the planning review, applications are kind of processed once they're deemed complete. So we have applications submitted. We go through, make sure everything that's needed for our review is there before we can move it to the next step. And then as part of these efforts, these different applications do have different statutory requirements. So we have environmental review, for example. There's specific noticing policies that are required pursuant to state law that we can't necessarily jump ahead of. But we do make every effort to move projects effectively. We have received emails from applicants that have had their projects approved developers have worked in many different cities, commenting on the efficiency that our department provides these services for. And part of the success is through meetings with new applicants. We try to make sure that we're proactive with them if they have questions before they really refine the site. We want to make sure that we kind of get a good idea of what the code requirements are so that way they can hit the ball running once they submit a project. And then, in addition to all these private development projects, staff has also been working on a number of key planning, advanced planning projects. This includes the housing element update, which is certainly a much more complex project with all the number of state laws that have come into effect in the past 5 or 6 years. And certainly the high RENA allocations that all the cities in the Southern California region received, as well as working on the wine country specific plan and the freeway corridor specific plan update. And so these efforts are, I would say, very important in guiding the development of the future undeveloped areas of the city of Ukaipa, and really will help set Ukaipa on a path for a prosperous future in the years to come. And so these are very innovative projects and really trying to help implement the visions of the general plan in ways that make sense. And so certainly looking forward to those efforts as well, or the ongoing efforts related to that. In addition to planning, the Code Enforcement Division, who I also oversee, has been also very busy. Could be from COVID, where more people working at home, working remote, have noticed issues in their neighborhood that they want to report, but nonetheless, we've received over 1,600 code cases received in the past year, which is an increase from 1,530 cases in the prior 12 months, and then an increase from 1,300 in 2019. So certainly since the COVID pandemic, we've seen an increase of cases. And so certainly that's part of the code enforcement's activity, is working on resolution of these cases, trying to help property owners make sure that they're compliant and addressing the concerns raised by the reporting party. Now, in addition to that, code enforcement also serves as the local enforcement agency for the city's mobile home parks. What that means is, as part of the review process or annual review and inspections pursuant to Title 25, the city's code enforcement division leads those enforcement efforts rather than a state agency. So rather than HCD providing that review, we do it in-house and make sure that we provide a more tailored approach to our many mobile home parks within the community. And then as additional efforts, what's unique to the city of Ukaipa, we certainly do have our chicken ranches as part of the city's history. And as part of that, the city staff, the code enforcement does do poultry ranch inspections to ensure the compliance with the manure management. Certainly that effort is to help abate some of the fly issues that had historically been part of Ukaipa, as one of our Vector Control Committee members calls the Ukaipa Air Force with the flies. And so certainly been working to make sure that that progress has been there. And over the past several years, certainly the number of reports on the North Bench Fly page has dramatically dropped because of these efforts. And then we are also supporting the organic waste process rollout with BERTED, which is the recycling of organic foods, and how that process is supposed to go. Now, despite that, we do have, as I mentioned, a number of cases that have been received. We do have some cases that have remained open for longer than we would like, resulting in kind of prolonged issues for the neighborhood. Following direction from City Council, the city will be moving forward with a third-party collections recommendation, which will help reinforce this deterrent approach. And then through this effort, prioritizing staff resources to really work and find solutions to these code cases, and being much more of a guiding hand to help people through the permit process or whatever elements that they need to make sure that we address those neighborhood concerns. Since all these code cases are result from other private property members reaching out to us saying, hey, there's a problem in our neighborhood. And so we do take it very seriously to respond to those complaints and make sure that the neighborhoods are functioning appropriately and that people aren't breaking the rules and causing a nuisance to their neighbors and to the community at large. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Fermin.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Landon, and thank you for your efforts over the last 12 months. And just to close, I wanted to say that the department has continued to provide customer service to the community, to the residents, commercial residential developers, in terms of the permit and plan check turnaround times, the planning review times that Ben mentioned, and also with our overall maintenance efforts. And I think that with the number of construction projects we have completed and that are underway, and also with a lot of the services that you've heard of tonight, I think we've worked to improve the quality of life for Ukaipa residents and the community. And I know I speak for my department and perhaps the entire City Hall staff. I'd just like to thank the City Council and the City Manager for the resources that you've been able to authorize with to be able to provide these services for the community. So with that concludes our report, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, for Mayor and gentlemen. Any questions or comments of staff?
I think it was a good report. Thank you.
Yeah, great report. What grabbed my attention was that the city is its fourth most permits in the history. Is it the fourth busiest year in the history of Ukaipa?
For our planning division,
Is that true? Yeah. That's impressive.
My question is, with the electronic filings, have our turnaround times been significantly reduced?
yes, they have.
And is it still generally the 15 workday turnaround? Is that the standard that we use?
That's the standard that we use, but we have seen over the last 12 months that the average turnaround time has reduced significantly. And I should have mentioned that earlier, but it has reduced significantly compared to the previous 12-month period.
And do we have any set times for pre-submittal meetings? What's the term? Pre-application meetings, where a customer comes in and submits a draft of his or her project, and then all the departments come in and they review it, and then they offer their opinion, whether it's good to go or they want to see these corrections before they actually submit. So it's a pre-submittal meeting, I guess is what it is. Do we have anything that's organized, or is that just catch as catch can?
We don't have any set times for that, but we have received a lot of requests from applicants for a pre-application meeting where, as you mentioned, a lot of the division staff will get together and provide initial input at that time. And
I do want to note as well, as part of the planning division, we do have a formal pre-application process for larger, more complex projects. And so from that, we'll take in the project, send it out directly to the applicants. It's no formal set submittal requirements. It really is for the applicant. The more information you provide, the more detailed or granular we can go with the detail. And then schedule it for a DRC where we do get the utility companies, including the water district, involved, as well as an invitation with the planning commission chair as well. And then we certainly do take less formal pre-application meetings. If someone's trying to look at a project, just wants to get a very quick kind of idea of some of the design elements, we do work with them before they go through the full entitlement review process.
Which in turn causes their plan checks to move much more quickly.
Yeah, we try to
And
catch
maybe,
theirs.
yeah. All right, thank you. This is a receive and file, I believe. And if there's no further questions or comments, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. Now we have, moving up to our study sessions. For item number 16, Megan Wolf, Community Service User Fees.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I think it's perfect that this item is following the Development Services item, as they build all the infrastructure and we make the house a home in community services. With that being said, the Community Services Department is responsible for programs and services that provide opportunities for people to make lasting memories here in Ukaipa, and to enjoy, to live, work, and or play in Ukaipa. The community services user fees have not been increased since 2017. The department is committed to offering quality programs and services at competitive rates while meeting the needs of the community. To achieve this goal and address input received from customers, contract instructors and staff. Staff is recommending changing the user fee methodology. A change in methodology will also provide the opportunity for community services to align with City Council's adopted fiscal year 21-22 budget goals, which include providing cost-effective programming and having a cost recovery rate of at least 50% at the Ukaipa Performing Arts Center. In order to improve the cost recovery percentage and increase customer service, staff is recommending that we use feedback received from the customers over the past 5 years from our staff, which include contract instructors. And contract instructors are those that teach a certain class or program at the city, and they use a city facility, and they charge an amount which they choose to charge, and they receive 70% of that income or that class fee, and the city receives 30% of that income or class fee. In addition, we would use feedback received from staff and information from other professionals in the field of parks and recreation to amend the user fees. Staff has met with professionals in the Parks and Recreation Department who are currently researching ways to determine the appropriate balance of tax and user fees to pay for services offered in the community. One of the organizations that shared information with staff was the Riverside County Regional Parks and Open Space District. They hired a consultant, Greenplay, to complete a comprehensive parks resources and recreation service plan. Staff read the plan and used information from the plan to make recommendations you'll see on this evening's council report. One of the current issues is charging a non-resident fee for programs and drop-in activities. In 2017, City Council increased the fee from $10 to 30% of the charge of that program, class, or activity. Since then, staff has received complaints from different programs, contract instructors, and/or participants. I'd like to use the STARS before and after school program as an example. Parents that participate in the STARS before and after school program who do not live in Ukaipa do not understand, agree, or feel that a non-resident fee is justifiable. Because the program is held on Ukaipa-Calimesa Joint Unified School District sites, and they pay taxes towards the school district. Non-residents who reside in Calimesa, oh, I already said that, sorry. I did want to say that staff currently responds with the program is put on by the city of Ukaipa, therefore non-residents have to pay a 30% increase or 30% additional fee. Since implementing this fee in 2017, there has been a 10% decrease in the number of STARS non-resident enrollment numbers. The next comment was received from contract instructors. Contract instructors do not understand and or agree with or support the non-resident fee. This non-resident fee of 30% resulted in a loss of 4 instructors, one of which was a Lego instructor who offered Lego Camp, one of our most popular classes in the summer. And it also resulted in a 20% decrease in contract class enrollment. The Lego class, for example, was a $200 registration, and therefore non-residents had to pay $200 plus 30%. Staff is recommending that the non-resident fee be removed and implement a resident priority registration policy. This policy would give residents and Ukaipa-based nonprofit organizations the ability to register for programs before non-residents. In addition, removing the non-resident fee could result in an increase in participation, which in turn will result in an increase in revenue and a decrease in general fund subsidy. This decrease in general fund subsidy would be a direct benefit to the residents of the city of Ukaipa. The next item that I'd like to discuss in regards to user fees and groups is rentals. The city currently owns several facilities that they rent out to the public, And the rental fees are broken into 4 categories: a resident nonprofit, a resident, a non-resident nonprofit, and a non-resident. These 4 categories has caused confusion for staff, confusion for people trying to rent our facilities. There has been such a change in society since 2017. People want information, they want it now, they know what they want, and they want to be able to grab it within a few minutes. So they want to call and get quotes for how much a rental will be for a city facility, or they want to go online and press a button and be able to reserve that facility. Unfortunately, our current registration software system and multiple recreation software systems don't allow for fees to automatically populate based on where you live. And that is because the registration software system doesn't have a GIS component that will allow the system to understand you don't live here, therefore you pay these fees. Because we don't have that, our system populates the fees that we have put in, and then we have to change the fee based on where you live and or what nonprofit organization you belong to. And as well as we have received a plethora of people who are renting a city facility, and we inform them that the rate is X amount of dollars, and they said, well, I saw online or I heard from a friend that this is the rate, not the rate you're providing me, but it's much less than that. And we inform them, well, that rate is for residents, and you are a non-resident. And so they use an address that is maybe their friend's address, or they find a creative way to become a resident, to receive the resident rate. Removing the rental fee user groups and implementing a resident discount policy may alleviate some of these concerns. The discount would allow residents to receive a 10% off the total cost of the rental, which in turn would provide, we believe, more rental opportunities. The next step in the change in methodology would be to change all fees and place them into one of 3 categories to determine their cost recovery percentage. And those 3 categories would be a drop-in activity, which a drop-in activity is something that you're just going to go to for a little bit or maybe one day. For example, pickleball at the community center or recreational swim at the pool. The other category would be programs. An example of that would be the STARS before and after school program or a contract class program. And the final category would be a rental. Based on staff's analysis, it's recommended that programs and rentals have a goal of 100% cost recovery, since those services would directly benefit individuals. It is recommended that drop-in activities have a cost recovery at least 50%, as they benefit more than one person attending that activity. In addition to changing the methodology, staff is recommending that user fees be increased by CPI. As detailed in the background, the last increase was in 2017. Fees can be adjusted by one of the following options, and staff is seeking council's direction. Option 1 would be a standard increase of 16.1%, which is the approximate total equivalent change in CPI from 2018 to 2022. And this increase would maintain the current cost recovery rate of 51%, not including indirect cost. And option 2 would be to increase fees to be in line with the fair market value. This increase in fees would range between 16 and 40%. An example of that is our special event permit is a permit that those that can want to have a special event in the city can apply for. And the permit is $16.25. However, the going rate for a special event permit is $200. And the amount of staff time that it takes to produce a special event permit is a lot more costly than $16.25. So option 2 would allow the change in fees to be equal to the fair market value. At this time, there's no fiscal impact as a result of this item. However, assuming the rate of the program participation remains consistent with current levels, it's anticipated that the implementation of the proposed user fees would generate revenue to offset the increasing costs of services. This concludes my report, and I may answer any questions that you have at this time. Oh, it doesn't conclude my report. I lied to you. I'm sorry. Staff is recommending that City Council conduct a study session and review the user fee recommendations and direct staff as appropriate.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Well, I can give you my recommendations unless you'd like to go first.
So the same group of people that are complaining about resident, non-resident are probably going to complain that there's a 10% discount or a discount for residents. Why don't we just eliminate that and go to option 2 and raise them all the way up, and that way see how that works?
Okay.
It's an idea. Well, there's a number of things that we have to go through here, right? I counted the non-resident fee to resident priority. Then we have the different options for overall CPI adjustments. And then we also have rental rates. Am I reading that right?
You are correct.
Okay. Well, when it comes to the 30%, I'm okay with eliminating that. If you feel that the program is faltering because we have that 30% fee, it only makes sense to get rid of it, so. And I guess putting our residents as priority would be wise. If the program fills up really fast, I think we probably should allow Ukaipa residents first. That makes sense to me. I would support, I'm not 100% sure on option 1 or option 2 at this point, but then also on the rental rates. If we need to get rid of all those different categories, that would be wise. I've heard complaints too that they'll call up and go, what is the cost? And we have to go through this calculation, and then everyone gets irritated. And so whatever you can do to simplify that, I support it. And then on the, I don't know, I'll listen to the others when it comes to the 2 different options.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. I want to address the STARS program. One of my concerns, and I agree with the complainants, is if you take away the city and county boundaries and just use the Ukaipa Calamasa Joint Unified School District, that's one political jurisdiction, and all the people are paying taxes for that. And if they are at the schools where the non-residents, Calamasians, are paying their taxes, I think that they should not be punished by living in Calamasa, because this is a whole different political jurisdiction, and they are contributing to the school district, which is paying for the maintenance and all this other stuff. So I would like to see the non-resident fee for STARS to go away. If you are a student within the school district, it's one fee. If you're from Mentone or from Redlands and you come in, that's a non-resident fee if they're not in the school district. I'd like to see that. With respect to what Mr. Duncan said, I think that might be a way to help. Option number 2 might be a way to help, one, increase our revenue, plus maybe, address those concerns about those who complain and manipulate the system, so non-residents will use a resident address to get their way, which is going to happen anyway. I do have a question about the active software program. Can you describe that, how that actually works and how it fails?
Yes, I can. So in ActiveNet, we program facilities, and each facility has a fee attached to it. And then we have to program a fee for each facility per category. However, when we type your address into ActiveNet, because it doesn't have a component, we don't currently have a component that can say, yes, Megan Wolf lives in Ukaipa and this is the facility, this is her category, these are her fees. Staff have to manually click the fees for that person as it relates to where they live and or what type of organization they belong to. Did I answer that?
Yes, you did. Is there anything that we can add to ActiveNet software that can include a GIS component? Or is there a reasonable product out there that's not overly priced that can help us facilitate the needs to address non-resident fees and, nonprofits?
There is a component that we can purchase that has the GIS system in it. However, there is not a component that can recognize a nonprofit organization. We can look into that further in regards to, are there other systems that can identify the category of profit or nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
If I may, I'd like to address the STARS comment. The only way a student would go to the Ukaipa would be in the STARS program who didn't live in Ukaipa or Calamasa would be if they got a district transfer. And a district transfer is accepted at the district level. And so I'm not sure how those are determined, but I do want to say I think it would be a little hard for us to charge, if you lived in Redlands or any other city besides Ukaipa or Calamasa, you have to pay a non-resident fee for STARS if they received a district transfer.
What do you estimate the percentage of those children?
I'm very fortunate to have Sarah here, and so she can say yes or no, but I would say less than 2%, less than 1% maybe even. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's something we can eat, personally.
Are you still interested in giving the Ukaipa residents priority if it's full? Is that what you were recommending?
Yes.
Okay.
Are the instructors going to participate if we implement that?
I believe that we will have a much higher return in contract instructors and a lot happier, we like to call them, staff, because they are a part of our program, if we do offer the priority registration for residents and we eliminate the 30% non-resident fee for their classes.
That solves the problem, just eliminate the non-residency fee, for sure.
But if I am concerned though, if some of these classes do fill up, or even rentals or so forth, if there's people from out of the area wanting to come and say rent the YPAC, and there's two at the exact same time, I still believe the Ukaipa residents should have priority. Is that a recommendation that you're giving?
I'm really glad you brought this up. So providing priority to rentals is very difficult because currently at the YPAC, we have a few high schools that are not in Ukaipa that want to book for their prom for 2023. And so it would be hard to say we need to wait and
Well, no, I'm not saying that we should wait. I'm saying that if the applications came in at the exact same time for the exact same date and everything was on par, was equal, when you're looking at the two, I believe that you should probably give priority to the Ukaipa resident. If the out of, you know, or if somewhere else in the region comes in and he was there first, I would give them priority.
we can absolutely do that if that is
Yeah.
council's direction.
I'm just talking, if everything was absolutely equal, I would give the Ukaipa
They came in the
resident.
same day,
Yes.
then
Yeah.
you say,
I
"Oh,
would
I'm
give
sorry, the
Ukaipa.
high school takes priority over East Valley Citrus. We don't like them anyway."
Has that ever happened? Has that ever
Hey, they're
happened?
renting our facility.
We have received applications on the same day. I can't speak to if they were out-of-town applications. I can definitely look at that and get back to council on that, but I can tell you that the YPAC is currently receiving, 5 to 6 inquiries a week on rentals.
Inquiries or bookings?
Inquiries, it always starts at, how much does it cost?
And this will simplify that process, and you would be able to, right, that'll help it along. I support that.
Okay, so someone want to repeat what we just decided?
Well, it's just a study session, so we don't have to make a motion. Right?
No motion, but we do have to provide directions. For example, let's start at the top with the stars. I want to, any child that goes to any school in Ukaipa or school district in Ukaipa's school district, one fee, regardless if they're a resident of Ukaipa or not. And understanding that there may be less than 3% who are transfers that actually live in Redlands or someplace else, I would suggest that we go ahead and absorb that, since it's such a low number. And
Well, that's the STARS program. There's a
STARS,
Well, we're
okay.
talking about all of them because the second bullet point is all classes, right?
Correct, that is correct, yes.
So I would, if you guys know better than I do as a council member, you guys are in the trenches. If you guys feel that that is inhibiting us from doing better as a program, I would be okay with eliminating that, but still giving Ukaipa residents priority. Yes.
And then there is two things. There is some direction that's still needed from option 1, a standard increase of 16%, or option 2, an increase to fees to be in line with fair market value, which could range between 16 and 40%.
Now, you say those 40% fee increases are usually just those really minimal, like $15, $16 fees?
Correct. In 2017, the community services user fees were increased across the board by CPI. But what happened with that is we had fees like the special event permit, which were only $15. And so the CPI at that time, the increase was, let me just grab that, 7.8%. So that fee barely increased. Drop-in programs, for example, some programs were $1. So it increased by 7 cents, 8 cents. And so the option 2 would allow for a change in fees based on cost recovery allocated to that type. In addition, after receiving direction this evening, staff will return to council at the next meeting with the fees in a resolution so that council may take a look at those fees and make sure they align with their goals.
And that'll also include the percent recovery, because, I'm not interested in making a profit on this. And so I don't want to overcharge and, we come out ahead. That would just be wrong.
And I'm really glad that you brought up that point. One of the things that I'd like to say is that we have user fees that are charged for programs, rentals, and drop-in activities, But then we have things that are free, like free concerts in the park, free movies in the park. We have special events. We have a lot of our senior services at the senior center that have very little cost recovery. And so our programs and services and user fees balance out the expenses within the department.
But none of them make a profit. Just for clarification.
Yeah, good. Option 2?
Absolutely, option 2.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So did we cover all of them? Did we cover it all? And you have direction and/or suggestions that you want to bring forward later on?
I believe that you covered it all, and I could repeat it back if you'd like, or
So we're dropping the non-resident increases fees, right? We're
that.
dropping that.
That is what I heard this evening, that we will drop the non-resident. We will provide priority registration. We will also provide priority rentals to applications received the same date. And we will move forward with a fair market value increase to the user fees.
Okay.
And we will eliminate the categories for rentals.
Sounds good with me.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Okay, I guess this moves on to announcements. And before we do that, Megan, before you leave, can you bring us up to date on any of the upcoming social and civic events that we have in our city?
I would love to do that. May I also have your permission to bring light to some events that took place this past weekend?
Sure.
Thank you so much. This past weekend was a busy weekend for the city and the department. On Friday night, there was the first ever dog show at the Ukaipa Performing Arts Center. And I know a lot of the children that went had a really great time. And then on Saturday, the Healthy Ukaipa Committee and the Youth Advisory Committee worked together to offer a 5K run at the Ukaipa Community Park and a 1 mile fun run, as well as a health fair. And so I'm really excited for all the opportunities that are being provided to the community. On Sunday was a wedding expo at the Performing Arts Center. And coming up next Friday, May 6th, and Saturday, May 7th, is the Ukaipa Music and Arts Festival. And I think there's some confusion online. The festival is free. We welcome everyone to come and celebrate with our community. What a great town this is. And we'll have live entertainment from Cody Lee, as well as plain white teas on Saturday evening.
Very nice. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to any council members have any announcements to make?
No, I was going to talk about the Music and Arts Festival.
Nope, I don't either.
All right, stole your thunder, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
She's right there, let's use her. All right, we do have some closed session items. Mr. Attorney, would you give us a rundown?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We've got 3 items on the closed session agenda this evening. The first is regarding existing litigation. It's San Bernardino County Superior Court case number 2009818, City of Yucaipa versus the Brox et al. The second is related to real property negotiations, and it's the assessor parcel numbers listed on the agenda. The city's negotiators, Mr. Casey, and it's the city regarding under negotiation price terms of payment for disposition of properties. The final item is a conference with the labor negotiators, again, the city's agency representative, Mr. Casey, city manager, regarding employee organizations, unrepresented management, supervisory, and confidential employees, and the Ukaipa City Employees Association. And we do not expect reportable action this evening.
Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and adjourn the public session. Gentlemen in the back there, thank you for being here. And with that, we'll adjourn public session.